Tonight's keynote speaker, Dr. June Scobee Rodgers, has always set her sights on the future with her tireless efforts to promote the space program and encouraging students to pursue careers in science and technology. In 1986, her husband, astronaut Dick Scobee, was the commander on the final flight of the Space Shuttle Challenger. After that national tragedy, June founded the Challenger Centers for Space Science Education, an international network of realistic space simulators to inspire classroom audiences. So far, more than 8 million students have completed Challenger Center missions, a new generation that will look to the future. Please welcome Dr. June Scobee Rodgers.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak at this grand celebration of new and upcoming writers and illustrators who will shape our future and inspire generations to come. And what a beautiful venue, and what a beautiful stage. But it can't outshine this prestigious audience. Somehow, this seems backwards. I should be the one in the audience cheering your success. To introduce you to the mission of the Challenger Centers, I would like you to watch the following video presentation.
When you look into their eyes, you begin to remember some things about joy and sorrow and even about yourself. You remember that what endures is truth, what counts is integrity, and the first step for everything is the belief it can be done. What if becomes what's next, and wisdom lives between why and why not. We celebrate curiosity, and we honor all those who encourage and support it. And if you want to find where excitement lives, where exploration is the name of the game, and where the spirit of adventure thrives, come here. The Challenger Center for Space Science Education. Dick Scobee, Mike Smith, Judy Resnick, Elle Onizuka, Greg Jarvis, Ron McNair, Krista McAuliffe. What could possibly be a more fitting tribute to character, determination, and strength? To the family members who work to continue their mission. Today, there are over 50 Challenger Learning Centers across Canada, the UK, and the United States, and there are many more on the horizon. Collectively, they reach almost 500,000 students each year. Using math, science, and technology, these girls and boys learn how to solve problems, make decisions, communicate with one another, and work as a team. When you look into their eyes, you begin to remember some things. The joy of learning and exploring, the profound belief that sorrow gives birth to hope, and the sure knowledge that though they may journey far, they will not lose sight of home. They will remember this time and this place, and they will inspire those who will follow.
And we owe thanks to Lockheed Martin for creating that video for us. I'm excited to be here to tell you about these Challenger Centers and why we created them. It's all about perseverance and courage to see our dreams fulfilled, not unlike your stories of persistence and commitment. We shared the story of our Challenger mission because it really begins just after my husband, Dick Scobee, returned from his first space shuttle flight, Flight 41C in 1984. Dick Scobee and I married as teenagers. We sent each other through college, and we both were moving along in our own careers. When he returned from his first flight in space, he whispered to me, "Let me tell you what it's like to fly in space before I tell everybody else." So he passed up all the reporters and neighbors waiting to hear and whisked me away to our favorite restaurant. There, we sat by the window with the stars shining, reflecting off the lake, and he told me with schoolboy joy what it was like to fly in space. As he talked, he kept slipping his napkin underneath his plate. I was curious about that, and he said, "Oh, I was afraid it might fly away." He had only had his feet back on Earth for a couple of hours. And then something that we had done all of our married lives together was to reach out with a camera and take our picture at favorite moments like that. Dick had been handling all the IMAX equipment on his flight and all the other cameras and just moving them about. So after he took our picture, he set the camera aside and it came crashing to the floor. All the wait staff came over to check on us. But I asked Dick in a more serious, somber mood after he told me about the joy of flying in space using all of his Star Trek terms. I said, "But didn't it make you mad that President Reagan on national television mentioned every crew member's name but forgot yours, the pilot?" He said, "No, June. What was important was the mission. We got the job done. It was a very important mission, the very first to rendezvous with a satellite and repair it, the Solar Max mission. The mission was important." Well, within a year, he was assigned as the commander of Flight 51L. We were overjoyed when NASA announced that Krista McAuliffe, the teacher from New Hampshire, would join the crew. I had taught every grade, kindergarten through the university, and was thrilled that the teacher would be on my husband's flight. For fun, the astronauts presented her with apples. And I gave her my favorite quote, "To teach is to touch the future." She in turn coined it for herself, "I teach, I touch the future." And you can say as well, "I write, I touch the future." Well, in no time, Flight 51L became known as the Teacher in Space mission. Finally, launch day for the 25th shuttle arrived. It was January the 28th, 1986. At the crack of dawn, that brisk early morning at Kennedy Space Center, the Challenger crew, led by my husband, climbed aboard their space shuttle. It was so cold that icicles hung from the shuttle and the gantry. The orbiter was poised for liftoff, and it sparkled in that cool brightness of the sun in Florida. The Challenger families gathered with me atop the Mission Control Building to watch the launch of our loved ones aboard the space shuttle. The engines ignited, a loud, thunderous roar. The ground shook with the sheer raw power of 6.5 million pounds of thrust. And as the shuttle lifted off the pad, the crisp air crackled with the roar of the engines and the cheers from the crowd. We had such high hopes, dreams come true, and tremendous joy and excitement. Then you all know that story. Then the unspeakable happened. We watched as the solid rocket boosters screamed off on their own path, swirling into their own unknown trajectory. Silence, numbing disbelief. That day, that bright light in our lives turned dark when we were told there's no hope. All are lost. No one survived. The tragic moments that unfolded before our eyes on that cold January morning, nearly 25 years ago, will forever be etched in our memories, as well as that of our nation, as will the words, "no hope." Years later, my daughter, Kathy, wrote a letter to the children of the Columbia astronauts after their accident. She expressed our feelings at the time her father died aboard Challenger. She wrote to the children, "My father died 100 times a day on televisions all across the country. And since it happened so publicly, everyone in the country felt like it happened to them too. They wanted to say goodbye to American heroes. Me? Well, I just wanted to say goodbye to my daddy." In the aftermath of the loss of our loved ones aboard Challenger, we had questions. What happened? What was our hope? I prayed, not just for me and my children, but for a nation, for the pioneering spirit of our country. All around us, everyone was suffering. The newspapers, television reported, magazines all said it was a national tragedy. I asked the other family members, how can we help? Their children waiting for lessons from their beloved school teacher from space. We had an idea to continue the mission. Well, we knew we couldn't launch satellites, but we thought that we could continue the educational mission. My student, Richard Garriott, and friend, artist Bob McCall, helped me with my idea of a simulator design to allow students the opportunity to experience spaceflight using a mock-up of mission control and a spacecraft. Note the beautiful artwork of Bob McCall, recently deceased. Bob painted for us the picture of the moment that the Challenger launched and it moved from their mission to our mission to continue that educational mission. Once we had the plans and the design sketch, I made an important phone call to Vice President Bush, who had given us his home phone number the day of the accident. My teenage son was at home when I called, but didn't know that I had placed that phone call. The next day, the phone call was returned. My son came to the back of the house where I was and said, "Mom, would the Vice President be calling you?" I said, "It could be, Rich." And so he kind of buried his head and said, "Oh no." So I went to the phone. The Vice President said, "Come to Washington, we want to help you." And by the way, that was quite a character that answered the phone. So I went back to Rich and I said, what was the Vice President talking about? He said, "Honestly, Mom, I did not answer the phone, Scobee's Bar and Grill." But he always did. And I told him it would catch up. And I said, "Okay, so what was he referring to?" He said, "Well, this strange man was calling you at 7 o'clock in the morning." So I said, "Well, who is this?" And he said he was the Vice President. So I said, "The Vice President of what?" Years later, then President Bush told that story. My son was a lieutenant in the Air Force. Slipped under the table and he said, "Oh no, my commander-in-chief, I'll never get promoted." He's now Colonel Scobee. He made it. Well, a glimmer of light began to shine round that dark cloud when we thought to create a positive out of that disastrous negative. The concept of a Challenger Center was born. Today, more than 8 million students have flown a space mission simulation to the moon, to Mars, Jupiter, or even out to collect data on a comet. We never dreamed the Challenger Center realistic space simulations could inspire students with this exciting possibilities for the future, and that it would grow into such a vibrant worldwide network of 50 centers that today reach around the world from United States, Canada, United Kingdom, South Korea, soon Norway, and in Downey, California on Monday. So celebrating the first decade, I was eager to share with our nation how the family successfully fulfilled our dreams to continue this Teacher in Space mission. I wanted to show the naysayers, and there were naysayers, who said it couldn't be done, that with persistence and belief in your mission, we could overcome adversity to see our dreams soar. But in addition, I had a bit of a personal need to be recognized as someone other than a widow. So I wrote our story about finding the silver lining. After the book was released just prior to our 10th year anniversary and a book tour that took me around the world, I was feeling fairly chipper. I was finally somebody. I was an author. Also, to commemorate the 10th year anniversary of the Space Shuttle Challenger tragedy, a flyover of F-16s was planned for the Super Bowl 30 in Phoenix. It had been announced that the missing man formation would be led by Captain Rich Scobee, son of the Challenger commander Dick Scobee. Just after the Star-Spangled Banner, and before the Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers ran out into the field, the announcer asked the huge audience to look to the sky. The crowd was quiet, and then 4 F-16 jets appeared on the southern horizon. The planes approached in a tight group until they were just above the stadium. Then one jet broke away from the rest and flew straight toward the heavens. And then the announcement. The son of an astronaut flying to honor his father and crew. A father looking down on his son. And I knew that Dick Scobee knew his son had become a pilot as well. Well, at the airport the following day, a crowd of people met me at the check-in counter, wanting to know if I was June Scobee. I grinned. I thought, oh, they saw me on television, the author. But instead, they ran up and asked me, are you the mother of the pilot who flew over this stadium? Humble pie, and yes, I was proud. Well, reporters continue to ask, what experiences in your youth gave you the courage to turn that tragedy of Challenger into a triumph for the beloved crew and a nation of school children waiting for lessons from space? I answered that question in the Silver Linings 25th edition, to be released in January. And as the anniversary approaches, we are pleased to launch a new project, a series of novels that I developed with writers of the future judges Rebecca Musta and Kevin J. Anderson. This trilogy is called The Star Challengers, and we've just finished the first one that goes to the moon, and you'll want to see the next ones to the International Space Station, so forth. These novels feature the Challenger centers, taking readers to a future moon base, a space station, and an asteroid probe. All simulations offered by the actual Challenger centers. Once you meet these teenagers and witness their courage and joy of discovery, you'll want to join them on all 3 adventures. Our Challenger Center president, Dan Barstow, said, "We reach 400,000 kids every year at our centers. Let's hope they all grow up with the same can-do spirit as the heroes in these wonderful books." The project has received enthusiastic endorsements from Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Sally Ride, Leonard Nimoy, Neil Tyson, and many, many more. Now, it's sad that the shuttle will soon take its last flight, marking its significant place in the history of space travel. But this January, 25 years since we lost the Challenger, I think we can honestly say that indeed the Challenger mission, the mission, continues with a renewed excitement because children from the Challenger Centers are our future scientists who will take the visions from the contest winners and turn them into realities, as expressed by Ron Hubbard in the following quote: "Science fiction does not come after the fact of a scientific discovery or development. It is the herald of possibility. It is the plea that someone should work on the future, yet it's not prophecy. It is the dream that precedes the dawn when the inventor or scientist awakens and goes to his books or his lab saying, 'I wonder whether I could make that dream come true in the world of real science.'" And as you observe our next slide, you'll notice that Seneca, who is a Roman philosopher and author, wrote, "Many discoveries are reserved for ages still to come." That's your challenge. See the teacher with an apple on her back and the children? These are the younger micronauts that go to Challenger Center. So you writers, you touch the future. You write and illustrate those stories that inspire our youth to reach for the stars. Thank you. Thank you for being excellent writers and illustrators. Thank you for inviting me to this marvelous presentation. You are marvelous. Thank you, and congratulations to all of you.